And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. We're live. Welcome to Benchley Night. Now, this current summer, it's going to be Robert McCloskey night for a while. What a day it has been, ladies and gentlemen. What a day. It started out, sometimes you have that strange, hubristic thought that maybe today you will get ahead of all that stuff you've got to get done. And I did several. Oh, there were contracts I got done, and I mowed the lawn, and I cleaned up some around the kitchen sink, and I was like, maybe I'm just going to plow through everything today. And as they say, man makes plans and God laughs. The first thing that happened was that I received these printed business cards for the Miss Bellows Falls Diner, because we're going to have the Vermont Downtown Project, the downtown conference here in Bellows Falls. And the nice new cards, they say MissBellowsFalls.com on them. And just to be, to be self-aggrandizing, I typed in MissBellowsFalls.com in the bar up there at the top of Google, and Google said, I don't know about that. Never heard of that. That's not a website you can get to from here. But if you search Miss Bellows Falls Diner, Google says, here you are. So then I had to go. So it's a toggle somewhere in the guts of where the website lives. And well, I had registered their website through a company called Bluehost. And Bluehost said, yep, you've got an account with us, but your password's wrong. So we spent half an hour resetting the password, And they went in there, and Bluehost was like, oh, that's for the Bellows Falls Opera House. That's not for the Miss Bellows Falls Diner. So now I'm sure I've made it so that the guy who does the web stuff for the for Bellows Falls Opera House can't get into the website for the Opera House. And I discovered that Bluehost no longer has the Miss Bellows Falls Diner registration, because the guy who does web development, who was the son of the woman on the board of the Rockingham for Progress, he suggested we switch it to Amazon. So we switched it to Amazon. So someday I hope to have it so you type in MissBellowsFalls.com and it takes you to the website. And then after that, just 25 minutes ago, ladies and gentlemen, just 25 minutes ago, I started setting up tonight's little broadcast, our live stream. And StreamYard, the platform we use, was like, you can't broadcast that on more than one outlet. You can't save that. You're over the number of hours you could possibly use. It got very, very negative. But it turned out that the account had lapsed. And so it moved back to thinking it was a free account rather than a paid account. So with some quick keyboard magic on the part of Ms. Betty Sue, we were able to pull this one out. But it has been exhausting, ladies and gentlemen, exhausting. So I think it's time. I think it's time for some nice Homer Price. Because what could be better than Homer Price? It's a dangerous world in Homer's world, but goodness prevails. And let us hope that is true with America in the next 6 months. And I assume pretty much, if you're listening to me, we're on the same side of what prevailing we're hoping to have happen. Anyway, so today's beneficiary is Rockingham Entertainment Development. We have purchased a sound system for the Opera House, and that is there and will be getting really installed in the next few months. There are a few cables and mics that are still needed. And then also we're putting on a couple of concerts, and we donate some tickets. And so your help in raising the funds so that we can donate some tickets and still pay the performers is very much appreciated. And I have one particular person to thank, who I will start out tonight's thanks with. The unidentified unglet and I would like to thank Ms. Martha Rowley for her exceptional help in making sure that Mr. John Langford will have a lovely time when he is here next month. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, Mr. John T. Wilhelm. Our good friend, Miss Catherine Fisher. Mr. Jim Frisk, who is an intrepid traveler on the Amtrak Vermonter. And I believe it was either today or yesterday, he did his first of his, what he loves to do is get on the Vermonter in the morning up in St. Albans, Vermont, and ride it down to one of the intermediate stops. I've gotten to know him because he sometimes stops in Bellows Falls. But he went down to Northampton today and then got the northbound Vermonter back up, either today or yesterday, but recently. But a good man, Mr. Jim Frisk, out there in Taos, New Mexico, where she is being called an asshole. She's being called an asshole by her small cat. She took the cat to the vet. The cat did not appreciate that one bit. My good friend, Miss Meg Miser. We have always to thank Nonny Moose. And then, of course, out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where a very interesting thing happened today. The Pittsburgh Pirates lost to the Chicago Cubs 3-2 or something. Pittsburgh Pirates now have a record of 22 wins and 26 losses. And the Chicago Cubs have a record of 26 wins and 22 losses. It's just a reverse. It's a reverse. Chicago Cubs, Pittsburgh Pirates. You spell those backwards, they spell the same thing. My very, very, very tall cousin and his wonderful wife, Elise, and their little tiny dog named Ginger. Thank you so much. All right. So if you remember what happened last week, you remember Homer Price. Homer Price had his pet skunk. Well, it wasn't a pet skunk, it was a skunk. There was a skunk living underneath the Price's house, and Homer tamed it by giving it milk and lifting it up to his room in a suitcase that he had strung a pulley, and he named the skunk Aroma, and he works on radios, and Aroma sleeps while he works on the radios. It's a lot like Corduroy in the studio. And he heard about the aftershave prize money given to Mr. N.W. Blott, the $2,000 and a dozen bottles of aftershave lotion. And so he went to the radio station to see when the big ceremony. And the radio robbers showed up, and they took that $2,000 and they took the dozen bottles of aftershave lotion. And then Homer inadvertently discovered the radio robbers when they went fishing, and Aroma saw the suitcase that the money was in, and it looked just like the suitcase she likes to sleep in. So she went to sleep in the suitcase, and then the robbers threw a rock at her, and she sprayed them. Or she sprayed the money. She didn't spray the robbers. I will reread that last little bit just to refresh you, okay? The fourth robber picked up a rock and said, "This will scare it away." Well, the rock, it went sailing through the air, and it landed with an alarming crash. It missed Aroma, but it broke a half dozen bottles of Mr. Dreggs' lotion. The air was filled with that distinctive invigorating smell that keeps you on your toes, but mostly the air was filled with aroma. And Charbonneau has just come in to join us. Hi, Charbonneau. Welcome. Everybody ran because the smell was so strong it made you want to close your eyes. Yes, and someone would like to sit on the book since I'm reading from it. And here's the picture. Here's the picture of aroma and the suitcase and the money and the lotion. Everybody ran because the smell was so strong it made you want to close your eyes. Homer waited by the old oak tree for aroma to catch up, but not for aroma to catch up all the way. They came to the bike and they rode off at full speed, except to stop once to put aroma in the basket on the rear mudguard. Aside from that, they made the trip home in record time. Homer was very thoughtful while he did the odd jobs that afternoon. He thought he'd better tell his mother what had happened up on the mountain. His father had gone into the city to buy some things that were needed around the place, and he would not be back until late that night. At dinner time, he was just about to tell her when she said, "I think I smell a skunk around here. I'll tell your father when he gets home. We'll have to get rid of that animal right away because people will not want to spend the night at our tourist camp if we have that smell around." Then Homer decided to maybe not say anything about it because he did not want his father to get rid of aroma, and because the robbers, they would no doubt get caught up by the state police anyway. When has that ever happened in a children's book, ladies and gentlemen? When have the state police ever quickly solved a crime? Didn't work with the Happy Hollisters, didn't work with Nancy Drew, didn't work with the Hardy Boys, isn't going to work with Homer Price. That evening, Homer was taking care of the gas station and helping his mother while his father was in the city. In between cooking hamburgers and putting gas in cars, he read the Radio Builders magazine and he looked at the pictures in the mail order catalog. About 8 o'clock, 4 men got out of a car and they said, "We would like to rent a tourist cabin for the night." You know what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. You know it's going to happen. Yep. Homer said, "All right, follow me." And he led the way to one of the largest cabins. "I think you'll be comfortable here," he said, "and that will be $4 in advance, please." "Well, here's a $5 bill, buddy, and you can keep the change," said one of the men. "Well, thanks," said Homer as he stuffed the bill in his pocket, and he hurried out the door because there was a car outside honking for gas. He was just about to put that $5 bill in the cash register when he smelled that strange mixture, partly the distinctive, invigorating smell that keeps you on your toes, and partly aroma. He sniffed the bill, and sure enough, that was what he had smelled. "The robbers! Those 4 men are the robbers," said Homer to himself. He decided he'd better call up the sheriff and tell him everything. He knew that the sheriff would be down at the barber shop in Centerburg, playing checkers and talking politics with his friends, this being Saturday night. He waited until his mother was busy getting an extra blanket for someone because he did not think it was necessary to frighten her. Then he called the barber shop and asked to talk to the sheriff. "Hello," said Homer to the sheriff. "Those 4 robbers? They're spending the night out here at our tourist camp. Why don't you come out and arrest them?" "Well, I'll be switched," said the sheriff. "Have they got the money and the lotion with them?" That's why I love Homer Price, because the details that the characters will focus on are so not what actual grown-ups would ever say. 12 bottles of shaving lotion. I don't really think that the sheriff would be asking, have they got the lotion with them too? Have they got the money and the lotion with them? Yep, they brought it, said Homer. Have they got their guns along too? Asked the sheriff. I don't know, but if you'll hold the line a minute, I'll slip out and look, said Homer. He slipped out and he peeped through the window at the robbers' cabin. They were getting undressed and their guns were lying on the table and on the chairs and under the bed and on the dresser. There were lots of guns. Homer slipped back and told the sheriff, they must have a dozen or two. The sheriff said, they have, huh? Well, I tell you, Sonny, I'm just about to get my hair cut, so you just sort of keep your eye on them, and I'll be out there in about an hour or so. That'll give them time to get to sleep. Then some of the boys and me can walk right in and we'll snap the bracelets right on them. All right, see you later, Sheriff, said Homer. Later, when his mother came in, Homer said, Mother, I have some very important business. Do you think that you could take care of things for a while? Well, I think so, said his mother. But, Homer, don't stay away too long. Homer slipped up to the window at the robber's cabin, and he started keeping an eye on them. They were just getting into bed, and they were not in a very good humor, because they had been arguing about how to divide the money and the 6 bottles of lotion that were left. They were afraid, too, that one of the 4 might get up in the night and run away with the suitcase, with the money and the lotion. They finally decided to sleep, all 4, in one bed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to show you the picture and see if you can tell me what is wrong. What is wrong with this picture? The 4 robbers all in one bed. Well, there are all the guns. There's the money in the suitcase. But that's not 4 robbers, ladies and gentlemen. That's 5 robbers. It's always bothered me. They finally decided to sleep all 4 in one bed because if one of them got out of bed, it would surely wake the others up. It was a tight fit, but they all managed to get into bed and get themselves covered up. They put the suitcase with the money and the lotion inside, right in the middle of the bed. After they turned out the light, it was very quiet for a long time. Then the first robber said, You know, this ain't so comfortable, all 4 of us sleeping in one bed. I know, the second robber said, but it's better than sleeping in the woods where there are mosquitoes and funny little animals that do not smell so nice, added the third robber. You must admit, though, that our present condition could be described as being a trifle overcrowded, said the one with the college education. Them's my feelings exactly, said the first robber. We might as well start driving to Mexico, because we cannot sleep like this. We might as well ride to the border. No, driving at night makes me nervous, said the second robber. Me too, said the third. There then followed a long argument, with the first and third robbers trying to convince the second and fourth robbers that they should go to Mexico right away. While they were arguing, Homer thought very hard. He guessed that something had better be done pretty quick, or the robbers might decide to go before the sheriff got his hair cut. He thought of a plan, and without making a sound, he slipped away from the window. You know what he's going to do, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know what he's going to do? He slipped away and hurried to Aroma's hole under the house. He whistled softly, and Aroma came out and climbed into the basket. Aroma had calmed down considerably but she still smelled pretty strong. Homer quietly carried the basket to the spot under the robber's window, and he listened. They were still arguing about the trip to Mexico. They did not notice Homer as he put the basket through the window onto the chair beside the bed. Of course, Aroma immediately crawled out onto the bed and took her place in the suitcase. "Stop tickling," said the tall robber, because his feet stuck out, and Aroma's tail was resting on his toes. "I'm not tickling you," said the second robber, "but say, I think I smell that animal." "Now that you mention it, I seem to smell it too," said the third robber. The fourth robber reached for the light button, saying, "That settles it. Let's get dressed and go to Mexico, because I think I smell that animal too." Then, as the robber turned on the light, Homer shouted, "You do smell that animal, and please do not make any sudden movements, because she excites easily." The robbers took one look, and they pulled the covers over their eyes. Excuse me. "The sheriff will be here in a few minutes," said Homer. But 5 minutes later, the sheriff had still not shown up. The robbers were getting restless, and Aroma was tapping her foot and getting pretty excited. Homer began to be disturbed about what his mother would say if Aroma smelled up one of her largest and best tourist cabins. So he quickly thought of a plan. He climbed through the window and gathered up all the guns, and he put them in the basket. Then he gathered up the robbers' clothes and tossed them out the window. After picking out one of the larger guns, Homer waved it in the direction of the robbers and said, "You may come out from under the covers now and hold up your hands." The robbers gingerly lifted the covers and they peeked out. Then they carefully climbed out of bed so as not to disturb Aroma, and they put up their hands. "We didn't mean to do it," said the first robber. "We'll give the money back," said the second robber. "Our early environment is responsible for our actions," said the educated robber. "I'm sorry," Homer said, "but I'll have to take you to the sheriff." He motioned with the gun and demanded that the fourth robber put up the suitcase with the prize pickup. He demanded that the fourth robber pick up the suitcase with the prize money and the lotion inside. Then he said, "Forward march." "Must we go in our pajamas?" cried one. "And without our shoes?" wailed another. "Aroma is getting excited," Homer reminded them, and the robbers started marching without any more arguing. But they did grumble, and they did groan about walking on gravel with bare feet. Robbers are not accustomed to going without shoes, and they couldn't have run away even if Homer and Aroma had not been there to guard them. First came the first robber with his hands up, then the second robber with his hands up, then the third robber with his hands up, and then the fourth robber with his right hand up and his left hand down, carrying the suitcase. Show you that picture, ladies and gentlemen. There they are, marching down the highway. Charbonneau was really interested in this. Marching down the highway with Homer with the basket of guns and Aroma. Oh, that's good. What a good skunk. Carrying the suitcase. Of course, Aroma followed the suitcase. And last of all came Homer, carrying the basket with a dozen or two guns in it. He marched them straight down Route 56A and up the main street of Centerburg. They turned into the barber shop where the sheriff was getting his hair cut and the boys were sitting around playing checkers. When the sheriff saw them come in the door, he stopped talking about the World Series and he said, "We'll all be switched. If it ain't the Robio Raiders, I mean the Radio Robbers." The sheriff got out of the barber chair with his hair cut up one side and not cut up the other, and he put handcuffs on the men, and he led them off to jail. Well, there isn't much more to tell. The newspapers told the story, and it had headlines saying, "Boy and pet skunk trap shaving lotion robbers by smell." And the news commentators on the radio, they told about it too. Homer's father and mother said that Homer could keep Aroma for a pet because instead of hurting business, Aroma had doubled business. People for miles around are coming to the crossroads where 56 meets 56A just to buy gasoline and to eat a hamburger or a home-cooked dinner and to see Aroma. The next time Homer went into Centerburg to get a haircut, he talked the whole thing over with the sheriff. "Yep," said the sheriff, "that was one smell job of swelling. I mean one swell job of smelling." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the case of the sensational scent. Now, next week, oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, next week, the case of the Cosmic Comic. Oh, and Super Duper comes to town. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have us a time. You take good care. It's been a delight reading for you, and I so appreciate your tuning in. Bye-bye.